What's up, IBL fans? Daxdleader here, back with, finally, power rankings for weeks 1 and 2. So, unfortunately, my lovely co-host, Tort is not here with us, so I'm doing this alone, but I do have a list of all the 16 coaches and how I think they did in these last 2 weeks, so let's get right into it. At number 16, we've got MyTurkeySub, coach of the Chicago Cub Juice, and yeah, he's at the bottom because he's 0-2. I didn't mess with that. Every team that has, like, basically you're going to see all the 0-2 teams, then all the 1-1 teams, then all the 2-0 teams. So we have Turk at the bottom because in both of his games, his draft is what really stopped him from just having any chance of winning very early on, I find. The part of the issue is that he has he has very few mons. That's something I complain about in the draft analysis, and here, his team is just so limited in terms of what it can do. He only has one Stealth Rocker, for example, I believe, in Celebi. So if Celebi goes down, he can't get up rocks. If, for example, I think if Blacephalon or Galley goes down, he loses a ton of offensive presence, that kind of deal. That's what's been happening with Turk. He loses one mon, and then his entire team synergy falls apart at that point, and then it's just a matter of, like, his opponent picking stuff off. So, yeah, that's it for Turk, really. At number 15, we have JoesephGames. Now, Joseph is an interesting situation because, and like, I don't mean any offense by this, I'm gonna go in I'm gonna go in on some of these coaches here, but like, no personal disrespect really. But out of all the coaches, listening to Joseph's narration, it sounds like he knows the least about the game. It sounds like he has the least experience. I don't even know if that's true, but that's just the way he talks in his videos. Saying something about getting his EV spreads from Smogon, like, Smogon and Draft League are vastly different things, and the only way to be successful in Draft League is to get creative, is to use your own sets. I think that is the most important thing. Yeah, somebody can help you, but like, you've really got to look at the matchup, and you got to look at what works versus that team in particular. Yeah, that's why Joseph is at number 15. Mostly, he lost both his games, and like, it really didn't take a lot for his opponents to figure out, like, the sets he brought just were not threatening versus his opponent's team. I'm thinking week 2 in particular versus JB Westside. He would bring in a mon, and then JB would just not be concerned. He didn't feel the need to switch out or to make a prediction in most cases because of the damage or the coverage or the spread that Joseph's mons were shown to have. That's the main complaint I have, and that's what I'm really hoping Joseph will work on. At number 14, I've actually put KreselleKey and the New York Excel Pikas. She has gotten kind of body bagged these last 2 weeks, especially in week 2, where I watched Flame's side, and he basically noted that she has one defogger, and she has one stealth rocker. The things that I complained about in the draft analysis, and that's really biting her team in the ass. I'm seeing that these past 2 weeks. Tech hazard stacked her, I think, and then yep, in week 2, she just got completely swept, right? And it's because people are figuring out the weaknesses in her team, and it's really not difficult to exploit them. So that's what I think Cress's biggest problem is, and that's why, that's the main reason I have her so low. She's shown to have a giant priority weakness, and a weakness to anything that can boost its speed. So the only thing that Cress's team has going for it, I think, or that I've seen, is that it's fast, but like, it's really frail. So if you can circumvent the speed somehow, then yeah, Kress is in for a really hard time. Coming in at number 13, we have Austin, coach of the Lawrence Talonflames. Now, his week 1 loss was a little odd to me. It was to Goldoa, and I just didn't understand that some of the plays that Austin made. The main thing I noticed is that he just didn't seem to ever want to bring in his breakers. I mean, it's not like he never brought them in, but he just let his walls get whittled down early. He let his defensive mons take a whole lot of damage without ever pressuring Goldoa's team or making any real plays to get momentum back in his corner. I didn't see that. And then week 2 is harder to judge because they had to reset and everything. They had to recreate the game. And yeah, that ultimately took away from the thought process. Rio played really well in that game, so I don't want to discredit Austin too much there, but that's why he is not at the bottom, right? He's at number 13. And then at number 12, that's where we are, that's right, we have Josh, Ultraplayer. And here, these next two teams, actually I'll talk about both of them at the same time. We have Ben and Ultraplayer, Ben Shiny Sableye 17, who I really don't think played that badly this week. I'm going to put Josh a little bit below Ben for one reason, and it's that I think it was really odd that Josh didn't bring Skarmory in week 2, and that he did bring Rabombi. That just, looking at his matchup, those didn't make too much sense to me. And I just, yeah, like there's a Celesteela right there, dude. I don't know, man. That's like the biggest threat. Like it's a first round draft pick. It's the best mon in Draft League. Like he brought a mon that has that can't do anything versus it, and then he chose not to bring a mon that could phase it out, which I found very interesting. So anyway, that's what, yeah, that's the main reason I have Josh low, but I really like the way he played in week 1. He was ahead, actually. I think that he potentially even prepped better than Tyler did in week 1, but then, we'll get to that when we get to Tyler. But, week 2 was a little odd to me. Yeah, I didn't fully understand a lot of what he did, and I think it could have been done better. So now on to Shiny Sableye 17, aka Ben. He's next on our list, and he's our final 0-2 team, and I have him at the top, again, because I don't think he played all that badly in either of his 2 games. He faced very difficult opponents in FlameHorizon and Techno. His week 1 game was questionable. I don't think that he should have lost that as badly as he did. I think he could have worked around it by bringing a different Alamamola set that dealt with the Suicune better, or even EVing it to take that Earth Power from the Camerupt. That's a big thing. I don't know if he could have EV'd it necessarily to take the hit, but like been aware that he needed that Alamamola in order to do anything, or in order to not just straight up lose to the Suicune like he did. So yeah, again, we'll get more into that when we get to Flame, but that was a little weird to me. So that's one of the only things I have Ben touch up on. And then the week after, he did make some nice plays versus Techno, but Techno's prep was just too good. That's what happened, man. And then, yeah, that's it for Ben. Moving on, at number 11, I think it seems we're at number 11. Are we? No, we're at number 10. We're at number 10, and that's Eric, Heavy Metal Pokemon. And he played pretty well. He's the lowest of the 1-1 teams right now. And the reason I have him at the lowest spot of the 1-1 teams is because the game he did win was against Turkey, MyTurkeySub, who I have ranked last, right? And that win was not even as convincing as I think it should have been. I'm going to be transparent with you guys. I mocked Eric for that game, and I think he could have come out with a much more dominant win, considering the team he built. Actually, he made a lot of safe plays. Like, he did pull out the win, which is good, but not even safe plays. He just went with his gut a lot, and what that leads to in a lot of scenarios is that it makes you prone to choke. So like, it makes you prone to like gaining momentum and then losing it all in one turn because you make a prediction that you don't have to. So Eric, my advice to you is to, yes, go with your gut sometimes, but what you should be doing as your first instinct is to look at what your best play is. Like, if it's a 50-50, or if you really think you can put yourself ahead, then go for it. But if there's a play that has no drawbacks, go for that play. That's what I'm trying to tell you right now. And yeah, that's one of those. That's the main thing I have to say for Eric. Moving on to Brendan. His week 1 opponent is our next 1-1 team at number 9. And Brendan played well in both of his games, but he didn't do enough necessarily to pull out a win 2 weeks in a row. I'm really liking the way he's using Hitmonchan and his low-tier mons. I do thoroughly enjoy that, but Brendan's deal is mostly that, yeah, he's not responding well to his opponents making big plays. I really like that he seems to have a game plan. Actually, I obviously can't watch his videos because he had computer issues, but for example, the Rose Raid versus Eric in week 1, he looked like the play that he made. I watched Eric's side, obviously. The play that he made seemed like the kind of play that was predetermined in team prep. So, like, you lead with Rose Raid, you click HP Ground. That's what happened. He clicked HP Ground versus the Tapu Koko, and then it switched out into the Arcanine. So yeah, that was really nice. That made me think, okay, this guy thought about this. He thought about the lead matchup, and he was ready for this. I like it when coaches do as much as they possibly can in prep. So that's good. And then in week 2, yeah, like I said earlier, he just didn't respond well, I think, to Tyler making big plays. It's not that he had much of a choice because, and like, well, again, I keep on saying we'll get to this when we get to these people's opponents. But yeah, if his opponent makes a read, then he's often put in a checkmate position, sort of. He usually only has one win con kind of thing. So that's what I'd advise Brandon to look out for. Finally, moving on to number 8, we have Ryu. I still don't fully understand how to pronounce this guy's name. Not that it's just people say it differently. I'm sure there's a right and a wrong way, guys. But yeah, let's call him Rio. I have Rio written down here. Coach of the Pittsburgh Huge Powers. Cool team name. And really cool team as well. It's not like I didn't give it enough credit, but he's really using his big 3, as I say, the Zygarde, the Mawile, that's his logo, the Lopunny, and the Clef. Well, yeah, those 3 mons really, really force prep from the opponent, and he's capitalizing on that, which I'm liking. In week 1, I don't think he played that badly, because he faced Darude, and what ended up happening is that, yeah, again, this is another game that's really hard to determine because this is another recreation. Well, not even a recreation. They completely DC'd, and they knew each other's sets in the video that ended up being the final product. It's hard to say how the game would have actually went under normal circumstances. Actually, Darude explained it. Rio was close to winning. Rio was very close to winning. But like he had a way better differential, I think, in the other game. But Darude was saying that like Singapore was in a position to sweep, which is interesting, and I'll get to that when I get to Darude. But yeah, Rio had like I like the way he's using his lower tier mons, like his Sun Core in Torkoal and Victory Bell. He made some really nice use of that, and in week 2 I loved the way he used Meloetta, relic songing multiple times, switching forms. That's actually the best Meloetta usage I've ever seen, actually. Like, the way that he could, like, he had Calm Mind so that he could set up on Yuxi, which was the check to his physical attacking Meloetta. Like, that was used to threaten Empoleon, so, like, basically he could beat both checks to either form of Meloetta. I thought that was super cool, so huge props to Rio for that, and that kind of won him the game, actually. Just leading off with that, and like seriously pressuring Austin's team, and the fact that, like I said, Austin tends to sack off his bulkier mons like early in the game without threatening out stuff offensively, like that played in Rio's favor immensely. So, yeah, that's why I don't have him ranked that low. In fact, he is in second out of our 2 1-1 teams. The first place team being GoldoaDragon, coach of the New York Empoleons. A team name I finally understand, actually. I had to look it up. But, yeah, that's cool. He faced Austin in week 1, and like I said, Austin kind of played himself that game, I find. Goldoa was just able to really do exactly what he wanted. He made a few predictions, and then Austin just kind of let him do the damage to the things he needed. He kept his game plan in mind. He was calcing all the time, which I like to see. I really like to see that. And it was just a very nice performance, a very clean win for Goldoa week 1. And then week 2 was a little more, not a little more interesting, just a little more, like you couldn't totally tell. Actually, week 2 was the exact opposite, but because Darude is Darude, that was not a normal game. And basically, in week 1, Goldoa was totally in control, like completely. And just because of that, and because I know that Goldoa was a good player, I put him a little bit higher than Rio. And then in week 2, it's really not that Goldoa did anything, didn't do a ton of things, didn't really, I don't think Goldoa did much wrong at all. I just think Darude is amazing. And we'll get to Darude in very shortly. So, next up, we have our first 2-0 team in JB Westside. So, his first opponent was Turk, MyTurkeySub. And that's part of the reason I have him a little lower, because like I said, Turk didn't really give his opponents much of a challenge, honestly. And then in week 2, he faced Joseph. So he faced our 2 bottom 2 teams, and I really think that his opponents made it easier for him to win, not gonna lie. He brought good teams, and I really like JB's team. It's very difficult to break. It's very difficult to like in both scenarios. Okay, wait, actually no, it was kind of different. In his first game, what he did was he eliminated the biggest offensive threat, and then his team just could not be broken by Turk's team. That's what happened. And then in his week 2 game, the mons that Joseph brought just weren't threatening enough to defeat anything that JB had on the field at the time. Like, there was really, JB switched very little in that game, I find. Like, he very rarely felt the need to make a play. He just attacked what was in front of him, and then when something switched out, he attacked again because he was either faster or because it just couldn't threaten him. So that's what ended up happening. The other thing I will say, though, is that setting up a Tapu Fini versus Joseph was pretty premature in my opinion. Like, he should have recognized that the floor just would have still walled it. Like, unless you planned on getting up a lot more Calm Minds than risking the drops with Moonblast, you should have saved that for later. That's my main criticism there. So, yeah, there you go. That's why I can't really put JB that high, but he did win both his games quite convincingly. I just wasn't super impressed by his performance as much as I was disappointed by Turk and Joseph's. So that's JB for you. At number 5, we've got Jacob, as always, coach of the Green Bay Pikachus, and Jacob's performance was very nice. I really liked the way he was able to, like, his prep is very good. I really like Jacob's prep. He determines exactly what he needs to do before the game starts. That's a trend you're going to notice. He calcs every turn, which is another important thing that I have. Like, you don't get cocky is what I'm advising to. I'm not, like, all these coaches are good at it, but, like, just in general, people get cocky. People don't calc, and that costs them games. These coaches have not made those mistakes, and that's why I put them up here. That's one of the reasons, obviously. Jacob's been doing really great. His team is so threatening, and he's just using his team's strengths very nice. The way he iterates the way he describes his game plan in his team builder is great. What he did both weeks is that he said, all right, this is the way I need to win, and these are the mons I'm building around my win con. I just need to remove this, this, and this, and then it's over. And, like, that's what happens. Jacob plays very relaxed, which I really like. And yeah, the only reason I don't have him higher is because, again, the opponents he defeated were not super high up on my list. He just completely washed Ultraplayer, and, like, that was just weird to me. Like, in Josh's first battle, I actually was very impressed. I thought Josh was really good. And in the second one, I know that Jacob said to, like, not discredit him for it, but, like, I can't. This is power rankings. I have to bash him for his pretty terrible performance, because that's what that was, dude. Like, you got destroyed. So there you go. At number 4, moving closer and closer to our podium here, we have Tyler, Phantombass, coach of the New York Cosmogs, and I'm such a huge fan of Tyler. I'm such a huge fan of the way he calcs everything, like I said earlier, the way he thinks multiple turns ahead every single turn. He makes plays that will put him in a good position 2 or 3 turns down the line, and he just has these reads that are like, he really, really is great at making these, I don't even know about middle ground plays, but, like, he makes the big play when he needs to. What he did, actually, versus Josh, that I'm actually going to critique Josh a little bit more, because Tyler was playing very safely until he got put in the back. And then once he lost his momentum by playing safe, he turned it on. He started playing much, much more aggressively for, like, the rest of the game, pretty much, and then Josh just didn't adapt, whereas Tyler adapted, and that's huge. Like, I really think that shows the sign of a skilled player when you can change your playstyle mid-game. So, yeah, that's a huge props I'm going to give to Tyler. And then in his game versus Brendan, yeah, he just had to make certain plays versus Brendan's very offensive team that just ensured that his offensive mons won, but he just eliminated the biggest threats one at a time. He made reads in order to do that, and that's how he decided that he was gonna win, and it worked. So yeah, Tyler, I didn't love your team, right? I mean, I liked it, but like Tort really didn't like it, and like I had a lot of criticisms, and it's not a lot of mons and all these things, but the way you're using it is phenomenal, dude. Keep it up. At number 3, finally, our top 3, our golden. So, well, we'll get the gold. We'll get the gold. But our podium right here, bronze medal. I'm giving it to DarudeLeafStorm, coach of the San Jose Panquakes. This guy, oh my god, this guy blew me away, actually, the first 2 weeks. His team is so weird, and he's using it so well. He's just winning in bringing these unconventional sets that you never see, partly because Phantombass is banned. Actually, that's huge. That's a huge reason that he's doing as well as he's doing, is because he's using this strategy that people are just not accustomed with. So, like, he drafted well because of that, but, like, it's just something I haven't seen, and, like, all his sets that he's bringing is not something that I've ever seen. He's impressing me every single week. Like, a lot of the times when you watch Draft League, when you've been watching Draft League as long as I have, you see creativity less and less, and Darude, every single mon that Darude has brought, where he's explained the set fully anyway, is a set I've never ever seen before. So that's huge props to you, dude. The only thing that I will say is that in your week 2 game, you massively choked. Like, he put all his eggs in the basket of going for the double protect and then passing into Simisage, and then he didn't even make the correct plays with Simisage. He went for the Z gunk shot when, like, the Rotom was still alive, and, like, dude, like, he forgot the Rotom was even alive still. So if you're gonna go in and put all your plays into put all your eggs into one basket like that, you'd better make sure that that you don't do little mistakes like that, little just forgetting things, like stupid mistakes. Come on. What I will say though, what really impressed me about that game in particular is that he started the game by saying, "Oh, I'm very scared. I know Goldo is a GBA player. He's great and everything." But then, like, about halfway through the game, all his nerves went away, and what he did, which I know is a flaw in myself, is that he stuck to his game plan. And I think that the easiest mistake to make when you're nervous is to not stick to your game plan. And Darude stuck to his game plan, and he won because of it. So that's the biggest thing right there. And that's why I have Goldoa so high as well, actually, is because, like, Darude's creativity was just so like, over the top that, like, there was really not a lot that anyone could do versus that. And I think Goldoa played the way he needed to. He just couldn't beat something he wasn't expecting, and same thing for Rio. He could not really, I mean, that's another weird thing though, like, going back to that game, because it was entirely restarted, they knew each other's sets for the most part, so he wasn't going to lose to the Simipour, which he knew was mono Ice Beam, and, like, yeah, Darude brought some weird sets, and Rio knew some of them, but and Darude was able to pull out a different win con. So that's really cool, actually, that worked out for him. Like, a person who's able to adapt, who's able to pick a different win con with the team that they brought. Not that should have to happen, but the fact that he was able to pull it off makes me have even more respect for him, so there you go. At number 2, we have FlameHorizon, coach of the Minnesota Golden Golducks, if that's correct, which, yeah, that's correct. Weird team name. But, yeah, he's been doing so great for himself. He got 2 very high differential wins in a row. I'm going to talk briefly about both games. I had a hard time putting Flame up here, like, he has the best, he's #1 in the league right now in terms of standings. He has the highest differential, and he is 2-0. So, yeah, like, you might think he's the best, but there's a big reason that I didn't put him at #1, and it's that, first of all, his win versus Kress was a little too easy. Like, it was mostly Kress's team that that allowed him to win. And yes, he prepped phenomenally. He brought the perfect set. He brought the perfect Landorus set, which I will never discredit. But, like, setting it up and getting it to work was, like, really not that difficult. And I think that's more Kress's fault than Flame's, like, playing super well. So that's that game. And then in his week 1 game, he did something that I really didn't like, which was not thinking a few turns ahead, in the sense that versus the Swellow, I think he didn't click Rust with the Suicune. In a very Danica-esque moment, he didn't click Rust with the Suicune, and then the Swellow was able to come in later and kill it when it otherwise would not have been able to. He probably would have been able to win with the Suicune on the spot if he had clicked Rust there. I get that you're trying to, like, you're not trying to choke the game by saving differential, but in that case, it really looked like he just wasn't thinking a couple turns ahead, which I really hope he doesn't make that mistake later on, because that's going to bite you in the ass so hard. I'm warning you now, Flame. Impress me, alright? Don't make that mistake, and please, please keep doing everything else you're doing, because you're doing amazingly. And yeah, if you continue on this path of just identifying, like, what the biggest threat is and then supporting it the way you've been doing, you're gonna keep on having these amazing differentials, because I really think that a lot of teams in this league allow you to do that, which is kind of scary. But anyway, I think Flame's gonna have a really good season. And finally, at #1, we have Techno Strike. Everyone knows Techno's a great player. Some might even argue that he's like top 15 alive right now. But anyway, we're not going to get into that discussion. But what I will say is that he has won both of his games very decisively, maybe not by quite as much differential as Flame has. But what Techno is able to do is bring the perfect set on every single Mon. What he's been able to do is pull out the game and be completely in control, never lose momentum, despite his opponents actually making very good plays. I'm talking more about his week 2 game versus Ben than versus Kress. Like, the main thing I want to talk about is that Ben made this really cool double switch into Beedrill, but because Techno was Scarf Entei, like, Ben just could not pull himself out of that game. And, like, Ben brought really cool tech in the Wake Up Slap Alamamola, but Tech was ready for that. And, like, a player that is able to anticipate another, like, very creative player such as Ben's creativity and prep accordingly and play accordingly with that prep in mind, Techno just did everything correctly, just did everything great. And the reason I have him higher than Flame and Darude is because he won through much more, like, I don't want to say conventional methods, but, like, he didn't cheese anybody. He didn't do anything that was like, wow, that was like, it wasn't made easier for him. Like, yeah, it really wasn't. Tech just played exactly the way he needed to every turn, and he brought exactly the mons he needed to every game. So I can't not have him at #1. And there you go. Techno Strike is currently at the top of our power rankings. And yeah, that's everybody. So I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as you could with me being alone. But I try my best out here. And yeah, I guess I'll catch you guys next week. Later.